Hi, welcome back to Focal Point AFR Talk. Brian Fisher is my name, your congenial, convivial, and amiable, as always, host. The program is Focal Point, the home of muscular Christianity on Conservative Talk Radio, and you are listening to AFR Talk, the most dangerous and feared radio network in America. Now, let me deal with that evolution story right off the top here, and then I want to get into talking about Rand Paul and Ted Cruz for just a moment. This is a story from Wired.com, and here is the heading of this piece. Voracious worm evolves to eat biotech corn engineered to kill it. So they use the word evolves in the headline. Here is the second paragraph. And this has to do with some bioengineered corn that was particularly resistant to the corn rootworm. And they engineered this thing, bioengineered it several decades ago. And since then, rootworms have virtually disappeared. Now they have discovered that these rootworms are developing a resistance to the rootworm resistant stuff that's in the corn. So they're back to eating the corn. Here's paragraph 2. Scientists have documented the rapid evolution of corn rootworms that are resistant to Bt corn. Fifth or sixth paragraph. By the turn of the millennium, however, scientists who studied the evolution of insecticide resistant were warning of imminent problems. So evolves is used in the headline. Evolution is used in paragraph 2. Evolution is used again in paragraph 6 to talk about these rootworms developing their resistance to whatever had been bioengineered to protect the crops. Now, ladies and gentlemen, this is not evolution. It is not evolution, period. It's adaptation. But whatever adaptation has taken place here in the rootworm is something that's a part of its genetic makeup. The genetic capacity to adapt to this changed environment was already there. You know why? Because it is still a rootworm. Don't miss this. It is still a rootworm. It hasn't evolved into anything else. It's like Darwin's finches on the Galapagos Islands. He talked about the change in the size of the beaks over the course of a drought and said that's evidence of evolution. No, it's not. They were finches when he started observing them, and they were finches when he finished. There was no change. They were still finches. There was no new genetic information that had been worked into their DNA. They were still finches. You have that peppered moth study from England in the 19th century. Peppered moths, some are white, some are dark. Now, before the Industrial Revolution, where most of the tree trunks there were light-colored, the dark-colored moths would show up on the trunks of the trees and get picked off by the birds. Then the Industrial Revolution came. The tree trunks darkened because of soot and all of that. And now it was the white peppered moths that stood out and got picked off by the birds. So by the end of the century, at the beginning of the century, you had more white moths because they had some camouflage on the tree trunks. By the end of the century, you had more black moths. And evolutionists say, aha, that's evolution. Wrong again. They were peppered moths at the beginning of the 19th century, and they were peppered moths at the end of the 19th century. So not evolution any way, shape, or form. Now, let me talk about Rand Paul and Ted Cruz just for a moment. And Rob, let's have a soundbite ready to go. It's the Ted Cruz soundbite. Let's see which one that is. Let me grab that off the list. That'll be clip number 1. Let's have that one ready to go. And what I'm reacting to here is a statement that Rand Paul made, and this is important for us. We're social conservatives, we're evangelicals, we have a biblical worldview, and we're looking for candidates who are going to recognize, defend, proclaim our values in the public arena. Because remember, when the Bible makes a truth claim, when it sets a moral standard, that's true for all people at all times, in all places. That's not just for Christians. That's a moral standard that applies to everybody because it is sourced and rooted in the God who created us. So we are looking for candidates that understand that, who recognize the importance of these abiding standards, moral standards, and who will defend them and find ways to see that these moral standards find shape in an expression in our public policy. Now, Rand Paul has been very appealing candidate to a lot of conservatives. And I've got a column to this effect today, I believe he has what I call a fatal libertarian streak, a fatal libertarian streak on social issues. And that's going to make his candidacy in 2016 a non-starter for convictional conservatives. That's what I call us. We are convictional conservatives because our conservative worldview is a matter of conviction, not a matter of convenience. It's a matter of conviction. Now, according to Breitbart.com, what Rand Paul is doing is he's urging the Republican Party to, quote, soften on social issues. Now, that is Breitbart's term, but that's how they're interpreting what Rand Paul is saying, that the GOP needs to soften on social issues. But ladies and gentlemen, that is the one thing that the Republican Party cannot do and remain the Republican Party. Now, I want to remind you that the Republican Party was founded in 1854 to fight slavery and bigamy. That's why it came into existence, to fight. And they called them the twin relics of barbarism. So the GOP was founded in 1854 to press for the unalienable right to liberty. Remember, that's one of the rights in the Declaration of Independence. Unalienable comes from God. No man has the right to own another man. That's an unalienable right. And the Republican Party came into being to protect that right. Just as we are seeking to protect the unalienable right to life in our day, they were working for the unalienable right to liberty. So they came into existence to fight the institution of slavery and to fight bigamy because it redefined marriage, which in America has always been one man, one woman. So they came into being, the Republican Party came into being to defend natural marriage, man-woman marriage, and they said any other arrangement is a relic of barbarism. So you get any definition of marriage, whether it's bigamy, polygamy, whether it's same-sex marriage, whether it is incestuous marriage, that is a relic of barbarism. And they came into existence to fight the resurgence of barbarism in their day. Now, what this means is that the GOP has always been, from its very beginning, a party that came into being to declare and to defend a principled stand on the leading social issues of the day. The leading social issues of the day. These weren't primarily economic issues. They weren't primarily matters of regulation, size of government. These were matters of social policy. And here's what Rand Paul said as a quote: I think that the Republican Party, in order to get bigger, will have to agree to disagree on social issues. The Republican Party is not going to give up on having quite a few people who do believe in traditional marriage, but the Republican Party also has to find a place for young people and others who don't want to be festooned by those issues. Now, I don't think he meant to use the word festooned. The word festoon refers to a decorative chain, so I'm not sure what he meant by that, but somehow he meant chained in or restricted. We know what he meant. Now, let's take Rand Paul's template that we're going to have to disagree. We're going to have to agree to disagree on social issues. We're going to have a lot of people that are agree on our position on marriage, but we got to find a place for young people to disagree. Now, let's take that template, go back to 1854, and the GOP position on the leading social issue of its day. Let me ask you this. Would Rand Paul have said in 1854 that because of the need to grow the Republican Party, we must agree to disagree on the issue of slavery? Would Rand Paul have said that? Look, we've got to make room for pro-slavery people in our party. If we take a principled position on the issue of slavery, we are going to alienate half of this country. We got half of this country that's ready to leave the Union altogether over this issue. We can't take that risk. We've got to have a big enough tent to include pro-slavery people in the Republican Party. But they didn't do it. And the Republican Party changed history because they took a stand on the most significant moral issue of the time, and they told millennials, remember, you had people between 18 and 29 in 1854. You had millennials in 1854, and the Republican Party said to millennials and everybody else, look, here's where we stand. If you stand somewhere else, then your proper home is in the Democratic Party, because we as a Republican Party, this is what we stand for. Now, you had to believe there were people at the time that thought it was political suicide, who were saying, look, if we want to grow this party, we've got to have a big tent on these social issues. We got to make room for slaveholders. If we don't want to alienate half the country, we just ought to keep the government out of the slavery business and just leave that up to individuals. That's how you get the young'uns on board. That's how you grab the millennials. Tell them they can have their slaves if they want them, because we're going to be the party that wants to keep the government out of those pesky social issues. Now, to waffle on these major issues, I think would have been a mistake. It would have been wrong for the GOP in 1854, and it's just as wrong in 2014. The GOP did not go soft on slavery, and every black man in America today has the GOP to thank for standing without compromise on the side of the unalienable right to liberty. Now, if the GOP wouldn't go soft on liberty because of pro-slavery millennials, it shouldn't go soft on marriage because of pro-sodomy millennials. Christianity says unambiguous, this is a quote from the scriptures, let marriage be held in honor among all. That means everybody. I looked up the word all. It means all. So that means you, that means me, that means Senator Rand Paul, that means the Republican Party, that means the United States of America. Let marriage between one man and one woman, natural marriage, what he's talking about, be held in honor among all. So what the Republican Party needs to understand is that leadership is not capitulating to pro-homosexual millennials, but persuading them of the superiority of natural marriage. Now, that's not as hard as it sounds. You got millennials who know the pain and the heartache of fractured homes. They know the soul-crushing impact of divorce. They've felt it themselves. They want something better for themselves. They want something better for their children. And so they need political leadership that recognizes that will appeal to that aspiration and raise the guardrails that protect natural marriage, not trash them, destroy them, and lower them. Now, there's a lot I admire about Senator Paul. He is principled and he's unbudging on matters of his political convictions. Now, that makes him an enormous force for good when he's right and a danger when he is wrong. On marriage, he's made it clear he's not going to fight for the fundamental social values that have made America morally and politically strong. Liberty, unrestrained by morality, is just license. We've had enough of that to last us for the rest of the century. So what I would suggest, Rand Paul's a great man, but he is not the guy for 2016. Focal Point, AFR Talk.